let's ask a question here, Ricky. Why does the media hate Tesla and Elon Musk? How much does Elon Musk spend on the media?
Advertising?
Yeah. Nothing. And if you don't give them a bribe, you don't get any good press. Why do you think that the dealerships are never thrown under the bus? Watch your TV tonight. Look at how many times you see a dealership ad or whatever, and how many times you see something about, well, those dealerships are really crap. You'll never see it.
What a fantastic podcast I have for you guys today. I've picked out my favorite moments, but it's an hour-long interview with Sandy on 2-Bit Da Vinci's channel. I'll put the link in the description if you guys want to watch the whole thing, but I've sped it up and picked out my favorite moments to react to. Sandy does not hold back today, so let's get into it.
I can tell you that what I do know is that the thing with Elon, for me, was just wonderful. When he came walking up, I thought he was going to bite my head off or something. He was very unhappy. He had just gotten back from his New York Times thing with the new phrase for, well, you've got to do this. Yeah, the FU thingy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, and his kid was eating some Cheetos or something, and he didn't say anything. He was just shoveling these things into his mouth, and Elon said, I think this may be the first time he's ever had these. And that was the only time that he looked a little happy. Then we started getting into the thing. We talked about the Cybertruck. But then at the end, when we started talking about what's going on in the world, and I figured maybe he could use my opinion. And my opinion and his is absolutely 100% the same. I think we're going down a bad path that's not going to be good for the United States.
Well, it's not hard to see the evidence. I mean, this week, all of the media companies have wasted no time jumping on the fact that BYD passed Tesla in EV sales. It's like they're just praising it. They're shouting it from the rooftops. Oh my goodness, Tesla, their peak has come. It's over. Tesla is on pace to become the most valuable American company in the world. They've employed almost 200,000 people over the last decade. They're making the most American-made vehicles in the world. So yeah, when American media companies are literally assaulting Tesla with just bombarding tornadoes, it's not hard to think that maybe something's wrong with America.
Okay, so I'm old, and I watched the Japanese invasion, okay? And they tried all the same crap. And sooner or later, all these government guys, they only have to hang around for 2 to 4 years. And they get their big giant pensions and all this other stuff that they voted for themselves, and they go back to their little house and they rub their hands together and don't give a damn. So I'm going to throw one in that I have to. So all these geniuses, they said, okay, this is what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And then they said, oh, and by the way, we're going to negate the savings for those guys that are recycling. And I sat there and I looked at that. I read it over 2 or 3 times because I couldn't believe how damn dumb these characters are. Wait a minute. As you said, these ingredients, they've landed on our soil and we can recycle them and we can make our own batteries then. Oh, no, it's got Chinese stuff in it. No. Can you tell me the difference between when it's sitting there in front of you? Is that lithium from North America or is that lithium from China? Are you kidding me? It's easy to make up rules if you're a total dumb. And that's a fact. It's so easy. And then if it screws up, well, somebody else's fault, somebody else's problem. At the end of the day, the problem is mostly government. They're trying to manipulate the market, and this is supposed to be a free market society. What in the heck is going on?
So I want to add some context to what Sandy is saying here. He's saying that the government is essentially forcing Ford and GM to make their own batteries rather than source them from China because there's a lot of worry in the US that we're going to become overly reliant on China for batteries. But this is making things even more difficult for Ford and GM, who are already trying to face the anchors of their dealership models and their unions. And Sandy, in his old age and wisdom, is seeing a lot of similar patterns to what he saw with the Japanese a couple of decades ago when they swiftly moved into the United States with their vehicles. Sandy is just taking the opinion here that using their battery materials is not going to help them all that much. If it's cheaper and it keeps their vehicles out of the United States, then that's probably better. I think Sandy feels that it's just lawyers and philosophers who continue to get into the office And maybe it's time we get some engineers in there.
Ford and GM, who don't you think they would want to do what Tesla does and just sell direct and cut these jokers out? What do they do in the future?
You do know that there are laws in most states that say you have to have a dealership.
Yeah, I do.
And you do know that dealerships make more money in total, like if you add them all together, than the car companies do. And money and politics go hand in hand. To make something happen like that, it's not just steering a ship. How in the world are you going to buy all those different politicians? How are you going to make it so that you get them to understand, the politicians, I mean, that, hey, you know what, this is better for the population. And these dealerships they're not really helping out. These guys, some of them are pretty rough. They didn't get there because they were, winning Nobel Peace Prizes. You take these guys on and they might take you out. I worry about that. Now, here's the other view that most people don't get. If you're an engineer at Ford, the dealership is not your friend, period. I'll talk about my experience as an engine engineer. We release an engine. It goes into the field. I want to know everything that went wrong. I don't care about the happy customer. I want to know about that guy that wasn't happy. The one whose engine blew up in the middle of Death Valley. I want to know about that guy. I want to know what happened. You will never get good information from dealerships. Never. We took that out. We ripped that out right away. We're making a customer happy. What about me? I need to know how to make that not happen again. What did happen? There's no way you can get any friends. What do you mean you're going to take that out and change this? What's that going to do? Well, it'll make it more reliable. Hey, you know what? We don't make any money on the cars. We make money on oil changes and fixing blown engines and stuff like that. They're not your friend.
They're not your friend at all, and they especially hate the EV transition. Look, I look at the dealerships and, Ford and GM as two separate entities. Ford and GM actually do want to transition to EVs. I think they understand at this point that it is the direction that everything is going. But unfortunately for Ford and GM, they cannot manufacture EVs profitably. And dealerships hate that because their contracts suggest that they get commission on cars sold based on the car's profit. So why would a salesman at a dealership want to sell an EV if their commission will be better when they sell an Escalade? So dealerships squawk like, oh, these consumers don't want EVs, but I guarantee you that salesmen are not actually speaking highly of EVs to customers when that salesman knows they're not going to make as much money when they sell an EV. It was racking my brain for the last few months. Why are all of these dealerships squawking about EVs, but Ford and GM continue to make these electric vehicle commercials? And now I realize it's because they're basically two different minds. They want different things. It's probably so weird for a customer. They're watching a football game and they see a Ford electric vehicle ad, so they go to the dealership. But then it's like the salesman at the dealership, they just don't even really stand by the ad. They probably don't even talk highly of the EVs at all. And next thing you know, the consumer leaves with a nice vehicle.
How much does Elon Musk spend on the media?
Advertising?
Nothing. And if you don't give them a bribe, you don't get any good press. Why do you think that the dealerships are never thrown under the bus? Watch your TV tonight. Look at how many times you see a dealership ad or whatever, and how many times you see something about, well, those dealerships are really crap. You'll never see it. They depend on that money, and you don't bite the hand that feeds you. And I'm telling you what, we'll never ever get the truth out of the media ever, because their job is to sell blood and guts, right? If it bleeds, it reads. That's number one. And then the second thing, if you don't give me any money, I'm not going to give you any credit. That's number two. It's just the same. If you aren't helping me, I am going to screw you.
So if you're a Tesla investor, you might say, well, then Tesla should hire a PR team to debunk all of this FUD from the corrupt media. But Elon Musk refuses to play into their game. I think that he feels like if Tesla hires a PR team, it's only going to draw more attention to the mainstream media who are perverting these stories about Tesla. Perhaps the rise of social media and as guys like Sandy Munro continue to spread awareness about the lack of truth going on at these companies, perhaps as X continues to gain more daily users and it becomes an alternative for people to acquire their news, then maybe people will stop using these corrupt platforms altogether.
And by the way, A car that costs to buy in China for about 20 grand, if you bring it in, add all the tariffs and everything else, I can sell it for 28 to 32,000. And the average car costs in the United States right now is 40 grand. They can still beat us. Even with the tariffs, even with the tariffs put on and all the other muck, China's cost for manufacturing is a whole lot less than it is here. It's just a replay of the same thing that happened when the Japanese brought their cars in. They were the right size. They were fuel economy. I mean, if you think about it, the electric car is the right size. The electric car costs a whole lot less. So I keep saying this over and over again. It used to cost me $250 a month for my Rubicon. My Rivian cost me $11 a month. You do not have to be Albert Einstein to figure out that this is a smarter way to go.
Well, Legacy Auto is having a hard time figuring it out, but Sandy Munro has helped us understand something important today, is that all blame should not just be cast on the executives at Ford and GM, because they are being anchored down by the union management and well as by the dealership models. So as BYD is about to penetrate the United States, a part of me is grinning at the fact that the dealerships are going to suffer as these Chinese companies penetrate the US, because they are exploiting customers, not only through dealer markups, but also through repairs and all of that stuff. I mean, people are denting their batteries and the dealerships are charging them for more money than the actual vehicle costs brand new. So they're really just trying to exploit these customers at every level. And Tesla is doing everything they can to help keep these American companies alive in the face of the Chinese competition, sending them packages on how to implement a 48-volt architecture, bringing them on board with the NACS charging standard. And companies like Ford are doing a good job of acknowledging that they're in second place and that they will have open ears towards what Tesla is wanting to teach them.
I think the design's brilliant myself. I think that it may be just the opposite. I think people are getting more accustomed to seeing it. And it's like the Beetle. When the Beetle showed up, it wasn't what you'd call terribly popular. I think they sold like 4 in the first year in the United States. But then it just became an icon, and it just went on and on and on. And I think that that's what's going to happen with the Cybertruck. It's going to be mass-produced in large volumes, and I think that it's going to be an easier build than normal. I truly think that what we're going to be seeing in the future is everybody moving in that same direction. Even Volkswagen now has decided to move toward the North American charging system, the Tesla system. I just heard a second ago when I was on another call that Tesla is looking to do in 3 years with charging systems or charging depots what they did in the last 11 years. That is amazing. And they're looking at strings of 20 for charging, as opposed to, what they have now is maybe you see 4 or 5. That's a really big deal. I just see nothing but blue skies for Tesla.
Well, Argus Research agrees, who named Tesla stock their top pick for 2024. They've got a price target of $316, and they're writing that we expect Tesla sales margins and EPS to re-accelerate in 2024. A growing dependence on AI and manufacturing capability and factory utilization has given Tesla a significant competitive advantage. They note that they believe AI is an undervalued component of the future growth at Tesla and expect its value to be recognized soon on Wall Street as FSD, battery cell production, and AI-enabled robots become a bigger part of the future at Tesla. And I expect, just as we saw almost every automotive company move to Tesla's charging standard in 2023, I expect several companies, whether it's this year, next year, or the year after, to sign up to license full self-driving from Tesla, because they simply have no way to get the data, as Tesla has spent the last 10 years doing. The lead is too great, and the advantage that this software is going to bring to Tesla will be insurmountable for these companies. They're going to have no choice but to license. But very few understand this narrative, because many people are only exposed to the mainstream media, who, as Sandy pointed out today, is only filtering through absolute garbage about Tesla, just perverting every possible story. There was even another recall report today of like 1.5 million recalls. Week after week, they're just freaking firing artillery on Tesla, and Tesla doesn't even care. They don't even hire a PR department. They just continue to go about their business. So let's just roll out into the night, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.